Whoa, buddy, put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
The Michael Dukes Show. Live across the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. I appreciate you guys coming in and being part of the show today. It is Thursday, and it's 9/11. It's a heavy day today for a variety of reasons. First and foremost, the remembrance of 9/11 and what it means to us here as a country. But obviously the heaviness in the room just got even heavier yesterday with the political assassination of Charlie Kirk at a speaking event in Utah at Utah Valley College outside of Orem, Utah. And I've got some things to say today. And I tried to write down some of my thoughts because this for me is this is a turning point. Ironic that Charlie was the founder and creator of Turning Point USA, because I believe that this is a turning point in our country where we, as citizens, have to make a decision. And on the program here, we don't normally deal a lot with national issues. There's very few things that we do or cover that have to do with national issues. I guess Firearms Friday would be the real exception to that, where we talk about things from a more national perspective. But generally speaking, day in and day out, we've advocated for paying attention to what's going on in your local communities, because that's important, and that's what that's the changes. It's where change can happen more more easily. That doesn't mean that I completely that I don't pay attention to what's going on nationally, although it's not my primary focus. I do watch. I do try and pay attention to what's going on. And what happened yesterday is going to have a real effect on the country moving forward. So here was the question that I was asking myself yesterday as this all unfolded. I was driving yesterday, and I got a notification from a friend, and then followed up by a quick text message from my wife about 5 or 6 minutes after the initial shot rang out. And I was desperately listening and on the phone and trying to find more information as I traveled yesterday, because I was going to Soldotna. And as this whole thing unfolded, my heart just broke. Not just for Charlie Kirk and his young wife and his 2 young children, but my heart just broke for this country. And what I asked myself as I drove on the highway, as I looked at the sky, as I had that moment of quiet and being alone, I asked myself, is this not only the death of a very intelligent, very articulate, very compassionate guy, but is this the death of discourse in America? On this program, I've talked for the last, I don't know how many years, 10, 15 years maybe. The show's, we've been doing this for 25 years. But for the last at least 10 years, maybe 15, we've talked a lot about the fact that we have been slowly and surely losing the ability to have reasonable and rational discussions, to agree to disagree with each other. That somehow we've created this dichotomy in the country where if you don't agree with me, and quite honestly, I in part blame the reinforcement and the echo chamber that social media has become. I think in some ways it's become worse, and I think in part it's because of the social media echo chamber that we see out there. But we've reached that point to where it's not just that we can disagree and even just dislike each other for disagreeing, right? I mean, that could be understandable if somebody had a belief that was so antithetical to what I believed that we just disliked each other. No, it's that if someone does not agree with me, does not agree with whatever my beliefs are, they are not only the other, they are evil. They deserve to die. They and their ilk should be wiped from the face of the earth. I mean, these are some of the things that we've seen in rhetoric. And quite honestly, it's on both sides of the political fence. And that's, that's kind of where we're starting to move towards. I have mentioned that, on the weekends, a lot of times I like to, I spend some time on YouTube and just kind of watching various things. Some of it's funny, some of it's not, some of it's political. And I'd be the first to admit that I enjoy occasionally going through the YouTube shorts or the reels or whatever, the little short videos of Charlie Kirk having debates on college campuses with the youth of America. And college campuses are kind of a special area because, again, you've got these young, passionate people who a lot of times are still learning. They don't have all the information, and you can see through the questioning and sometimes the reaction that they are more about the passion of an issue versus the information. And one thing that Charlie Kirk brought to the table that I think resounded with young people is that even when he disagreed with them, he was always calm. He was always polite. I mean, I've seen people, who were frothing at the mouth, upset about something, and he would just slowly, talk through them. He didn't have to agree with them, and he would offer counterpoints to their argument, but he was never yelling or frothing or doing any, he was reasonable. He was rational. He gave them a platform to challenge his ideas and have their own, have their own say. But again, that's the two-edged sword of, having an ideal. You have to be able to argue it and back it up, right? I mean, that's the rhetoric, right? That's the Socratic method of reason and rhetoric and being able to hold a logical argument and do those kind of things. And he did those things over and over and over in these videos. And as I watched this and as I watched the news unfold yesterday, and I thought, this is the turning point. This is the turning point, and it can go one way or the other. On the one hand, on the Debbie Downer side, this could be the death of real discourse in America. I mean, because who's going to want to stand on a college campus and say, I believe X, change my mind? Who's going to want to stand in the public square and try and have these reasonable, rational discussions now without having to stand, inside the Pope Mobile or have a bulletproof screen around them? Or who is going to want to take that chance? The definition of terrorism is using violence to manipulate or change the behavior of people in a political way through violence. This is not only was this flat out murder and a crime, this is a form of political terrorism. So on the one hand, this could have a chilling effect on people who would like to have these kind of discussions. Now, that's the one side. That's, like I said, that's the Debbie Downer side of it. On the other side, the other potential turning point is that whoever this person is, this evil, malicious person, they may have made a grave mistake, because they may have now turned a nation of people who were on the fence about, you know, a point of view, or you know, or about, you know, maybe Charlie's opinions on things, or just the ability to sit down and have a discourse in a public square like a college or a university campus. And you may have just tipped those people over the edge to say, no more. No more violence. And I'm not quite sure where we're going yet. I would like to think that we're tipping over into the point of where people are I've had enough of the divisiveness and the rhetoric. But then I climb onto Facebook yesterday, and I see person after person that I'm friends with and I'm follow who have talked about that they just can't believe how many people that they've known for years that they've had to unfriend today, or have been unfriended by, because they simply expressed condolences for Charlie Kirk and his family. That people are just shocked at the reaction. And I mean, we saw it. We saw some of the reactions. That it wasn't condemning violence. It wasn't condemning, you know, or if there was a condemnation of violence, it was always filled, but it was always had a precursor to it of, well, you know, this guy was full of hate, and he was full of this, and he was full of that, which anybody who is bothers to take 10 minutes on the internet to watch any of these videos that Charlie has put out or have been recorded of these events shows that he's not full of hate. He was full of reason. But I mean, he was passionate about what he believed in, but he never hated anyone. Right? He just had a belief about what he did, and he was willing to make an argument against or for in this case for what he believed. And if somebody had a counterpoint, he was willing to debate them and bring the facts together. But the reaction of some people in the country and in the world leads you to believe that, again, the civility and the ability to have discourse is kind of broken down in society. And when people like that are willing to not just come outright and say murder is wrong, assassination is wrong, violence in this form is wrong, but have to put all these precursors and have to justify everything that they're about to say at the end by, oh, you know, blah, blah. It really makes you question where we are going again as a free society. And so I don't know. I'm on the fence. I would like to think that we are all kind of like, you know, we're all now motivated and activated to be more like Charlie Kirk, to have a compassionate, reasoned argument. But then I see some of these people on Facebook who say things that make me want to, you know, strap on my body armor and put my family in my house and hunker down and wait for, you know, the next phase of American life to begin. You know what I mean? It's a crazy time. It's absolutely a crazy time. We're going to continue with this, and we're going to continue this here, and we're going to pick some stuff out of the chat room today as well. Here in hour one. In hour two, Sarge Truesdell is going to be joining us. He's running for the Borough Assembly in the KPB. Want to say thank you to Michelle Hune, who was scheduled to be on here in hour one this morning, and she and I had a conversation on the phone last night, and I asked her if she would graciously reschedule her appearance on the program because of yesterday's events. And so I want to thank her for being gracious enough to agree to that and to be understanding of that. So we're going to continue in just a moment. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We will continue in just a moment.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay. Hi, my friends. How are you doing this morning? Yeah. And the BBC touts Charlie Kirk's assassination, says Brian, as another example of gun violence in America. It was one shot. The FBI says that they have recovered the firearm. They've recovered the firearm that was used to kill Charlie Kirk. It was a high-powered bolt-action rifle. It was a hunting rifle, essentially. And they found footwear impressions and palm prints and fingerprints and forearm prints and everything else. They have video. They have good security footage of the suspect that they're not going to release unless somehow their technologies can't pick through everything, facial recognition or whatever. I mean, again, it didn't, it's astonishing. Chris said, you need body armor now. You need body armor nowadays for public speaking. Not to be too pointed, but body armor wouldn't have saved Charlie. I'm sure many of you have seen the video, which is disturbing. I can't unsee the video, right? And that it wouldn't have, it wouldn't have mattered. I mean, literally, you'd have to be in the Pope Mobile or behind bulletproof glass to have a speak. And how did we get to here where you to simply stand on a college campus and have a conversation with students, you have to be standing behind bulletproof glass? And it's so frustrating. Anthony says something. We're gonna get to that when we come back here in just a second. Greg said, as the day progressed, my mind went from shock to sadness to anger. Such an intelligent person that could articulate his thoughts. I mean, I agree. 100% agree there. Yeah. Charlie, we cannot let it become the death of discourse. Charlie did not sit on the sidelines and try to hold people accountable. He used the power of persuasion, reason, logic, and rhetoric. He did not call people's names rhino or denigrate them in any way. He debated ideas. He didn't denigrate people for their ideas. He loved God and he loved America and the American ideal. I 100% agree with that, Kevin. just scrolling backwards here to see if there's anything else that I missed. I started off by saying that I was trying to write my thoughts down, and I couldn't get them more. It just seems so inadequate. So I just was asking the Lord to, give my words, guide my words, because what I was writing down on the notes and everything, it was just too inadequate for what's going on. Richie says they've been doing their best to goad normal people into striking back to perpetuate their false narrative, accusing anyone conservative or faith-based as extremists. Yeah, I mean, maybe is that what they're trying to do? Was this an attempted false flag that they wanted to trigger something else? I don't know. Anthony also said, I'm not even going to try to sugarcoat it. I now see an entire group of people as potential enemies who are willing to justify and celebrate the murder of human beings over ideological differences on politics.
Public enema number one. Oh, wait, sorry. Enemy. Public enemy number one, which makes more sense. On the other hand, he's a little bit of a pain in the Michael Duke show.
All right. Welcome back to the program. Thursday edition of the show. The 9/11 edition of the show. And the discussion around the tragic events yesterday, the murder and political assassination of Charlie Kirk, who I love how some of the headlines, I mean, I don't even want to get into the headlines because then that seems partisan and everything else. You know what? We just need to stop trying to put people in boxes, I guess is what I'm saying. Because it immediately becomes right wing this or right wing that, or, again, that's just it's a way to other someone because they're with you or they're against you, right? I was just saying, and I started off the last segment, and I apologize if I'm rambling a little bit this morning. I tried to write my thoughts down, at least, kind of get an outline of where I wanted to go and the points that I wanted to make. But it just all seems so inadequate. It just all seems so crazy and inadequate. And at that, I mean, I just kind of threw my hands up and, just said, Lord, just guide my tongue if that's what you need to do today. So this is kind of just a, stream of consciousness thoughts of everything that's going on out there. Probably one of the most compelling things that I saw yesterday was a short video that somebody sent me, and it's from and I'm sorry, I don't remember the guy's name. He's I think he's a former congressman from, I don't know, someplace like Kentucky or something. Old grizzled bearded guy. He looks like the vet dad or dad bod vet or whatever. He looks similar to him. And anyway, he made a comment, and I thought it was probably one of the most brilliant comments, kind of summating everything that happened yesterday. And it's something to the effect of, they didn't kill Charlie because they hated him. They didn't kill Charlie because they disagreed with him. They killed Charlie because he was effective. And if you ever watch some of those videos of Charlie on campus, you can see sometimes when he makes a point to somebody who's asked him a question, a loaded question, or who's trying to argue with him. And there are times where you can see the light bulb moment in those kids' minds, these college age kids who have stood up there full of piss and vinegar and have all their ideas, and they know that they just know in their hearts that this has got to be. And then he lays out some facts, or he lays out figures, or he lays out an alternate point of view that they've never been given before. I mean, this is college, but they've never had to face an opposing viewpoint and had to debate it in that form. And there are times on these videos where you can literally see the light bulb go off in these kids' brains. And they're like, wow, I guess I hadn't thought about it like that. Or I had no idea that was, I mean, sometimes it doesn't happen every time, but there are definitely certain videos where you can watch that and go, wow, he just got through to that one person. And I think that's the point. He was effective. And that is one of the reasons why this had to happen. So, again, this leads me back to my primary question early on. What does this mean for us as a country? What is the tipping point? What is this a tipping point towards the complete and total loss of discourse? Is the intimidation factor going to work? Is it going to help? I mean, that would be working as intended. Is this a sign of different things to come? Kendall makes a note in the chat room. She said, did anyone see the article in the New York Times discussing a recent poll that says 34% of college students believe that violence is an appropriate response to unwanted speech on campus? And we've seen some of those statistics more recently, that more and more Americans have come to believe that violence is acceptable. That violence, and whether it was speech on campus or just with people who disagree with you politically, that number has been steadily increasing to where violence is acceptable as the answer. I don't know about you, but that's not a world that I want to live in. I don't want to live in a world where somebody disagrees with the cut of my jib or something that I believe in, and they immediately want to start gunning for me. That's not a world that I want to be part of. I want to be intellectually challenged. I want to be, if somebody doesn't believe in something that I believe, I welcome a discussion. On this program, we've talked about that for years. Yes, I have a definite viewpoint on things, but I have never shied away from allowing anybody who wanted to come on to talk about things to not come on and talk about them, because I just couldn't, The answer to speech you don't agree with is more speech. That is the answer. The answer is not to cut someone's life short. The answer is not violence. But again, more and more people in America, according to the polling, and this is just the latest one, this New York Times article talking about the 34% of college students. It's not just college students. It is people in general. More and more believe that violence is an acceptable response to political things that you don't agree with, whether it's the speech or whatever. It's also the equivocation of things like a disagreement with violence, right? If you speak something that they don't agree with, you're committing violence against. We've heard this, right? Oh, that's violent. It's violent talk. That's violent. How is it violent? Well, you're saying something I don't agree with, so that's violence against me. They're equivocating actual violence with just speech that they disagree with. Ergo, they can then flip the script and say violence is just their form of free speech. Right? I mean, am I wrong in that regard? When they say that free speech is violence, when they say that somebody just espousing their beliefs is violence against them, then they can then flip the script on that and come back and say, well, the violence that we perpetrated, that was just our form of free speech. I mean, that is the scariest part of this whole thing. Now, the latest news is that the FBI has recovered the firearm that was used to kill Charlie, that it was essentially a hunting rifle, high-powered bolt-action rifle. It was found in the wooded area where the shooter fled, and apparently they found footprints, footwear impressions, palm prints, forearm prints, and they're working on it. They have what they say to be good security footage of the suspect, but they're not going to release it at this time. They said they're working through apparently technologies or ways to identify. But if they are unsuccessful, they said they'll push it to the public through the media if they can't work their voodoo magic on their side or whatever of facial recognition or whatever else they're going to do. I fully expect that they're going to be able to come up with this shooter. And they did say that apparently one of the comments from, I can't remember where it was this morning. Anyway, that this person melted into they blended in. Oh, here it is. Bo Mason, commissioner of the Utah Department of Public Safety, revealed that the suspect is still at large, but said he blended in with a college community and appears to be of college age. So they apparently have a profiler in there who's making some moves on this. But it is so I guess let me roll backwards here before we go to break. My question was turning point, right? We're at the turning point. Does discourse die? Or do we make, or did that shooter just make another 10,000, 100,000, a million new Charlie Kirks who were just convinced who were so outraged by what happened that they now move in the opposite direction to advocate the way that Charlie did? That's the question. And we'll see where it goes from there. All right, we've got to we got to go. We're going to move up here. We got more coming up. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We will continue in just a moment. Back with more after this.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Ha, nice beard.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay. Anthony says, it's far worse than that, MD. The ability to attribute violence to disagreement in speech allows them to engage in the delusion that actual violence in return is justified self-defense. And I think that's part of what they were struggling with yesterday. They have come to believe that Charlie was, because of the rhetoric of what their talking heads and their mouthpieces said, that because Charlie espoused ideas that were antithetical to what they believed, that was akin to hate and violence and everything else. and that this was, in that way, that was justified. And that's the problem. Harold says if they have the firearm, it's a matter of tracking down the owners. But Harold, you realize that tracing, contrary to what you see in CSI or whatever, tracing of a firearm is nearly a universal, is almost a universal failure, right? That even if they have the firearm, it can very rarely be traced back to the actual, maybe to the original owner who bought it first. But generally speaking, that doesn't happen. We'll see. Maybe this time's different. Let's see. I'm just going through here. Let's see. All right. I see. History repeats itself. Frank asked me, why would I identify it as a hunting? I'm just giving people an idea of the time. Frank, I'm not going to argue with you on this. It's a scoped rifle, bolt action scoped rifle, which is, like I said, essentially it's just like your granddad's, you know what I mean? That's what I was saying. Not specifically. I mean, who knows? Maybe it's maybe it's an M27 sniper platform. I have no idea. But it's essentially a bolt action scoped rifle, i.e. a hunting rifle. Why do you got to argue with everything? Kendall says, I think a serious conversation needs to be had about what in the world public school is teaching children in America about violence as an acceptable response to free speech. The idea of hate speech is taught in public schools and colleges. If people are in a system that reinforces this worldview for 13 plus years of their formative years, we are going to struggle to turn the tide. This is exactly what Charlie was combating on campus. We need to combat it earlier and hold public schools and staff accountable, I believe is what she's going to say. And I agree with that. That the idea that speech that you disagree with is hate speech, is violence, is, whatever. That is, it's just unacceptable. I don't agree with a lot of things that are said by a lot of people, but I don't see it as hate speech because they disagree with me. I don't see it as violence because they want to have their point of view and have their platform to have their point of view. But the victimhood that is being preached in a lot of secondary and post-secondary schools is real. That's what we're seeing when they say, we want a safe space on campus. We don't want to be exposed to like I was saying, when you watch some of these videos and you see the light bulb moment in some of these kids' minds, because probably they've never had their ideas challenged in class on campus. And you watch these videos of Charlie talking to these kids, and every now and then you'll see that boing, where he says something and their brain just goes, takes a stutter step, and you could see that they're thinking through what he said. And it's probably the first time they've been challenged on their ideology. And I thought that was the whole point of college, was to get them to think at a higher, more rational level. Instead, we've taught them that anything that disagrees with their pre-programmed worldview that's been given to them by the establishment is evil. It's wrong. It's hate. It's violence. That's madness. But that's where we're at today. All right. So we're going to continue here. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio.
Public enema number one. Oh, wait, sorry. Public enemy number one, which makes more sense. On the other hand, he's a little bit of a pain in the Michael Duke Show.
So today, we continue to talk about yesterday's assassination of Charlie Kirk and the ramifications of that. Now, I obviously like Charlie and his message, because when I bought the radio stations, that was one of the shows that I chose to keep. I wanted that show for sure because I knew that Charlie is the voice. I mean, the promo says it, whatever it says, a voice of a generation. Because I knew he was engaged with. I knew that he was engaged with, the younger crowd. He understood them. He was one of them. He's 31 years old. He understood that younger generation, and that he was shaping a lot of what was going on out there. I chose to have Charlie on my radio stations because I believed in his message, and I thoroughly enjoyed the way that he had dealt with things. And so to watch this happen and to watch this unfold yesterday again was heartbreaking. And again, it left me and I'm going to come back to the same question that I had before. This tipping point, this turning point of, does discourse die, or is this the flash in the pan that creates a whole bunch of new Charlies? There are Turning Point USAs, which is the organization that Charlie headed, organizations across the country. I saw somebody post that there's a Turning Point USA meeting today in Fairbanks, so the campus in Fairbanks, for, I guess they have a high school chapter or whatever. I mean, my question becomes, do we just all step up, or do we hunker down and hide? Now, I've been doing this radio show for a long time, 20 plus years. And I have a point of view, and I have a point of view that some people don't agree with. Now, obviously, I don't have a fraction of the coverage or the recognition that somebody like Charlie Kirk does. No, I have no national recognition. I barely have local recognition sometimes. But I have received my share of threats. Nothing to this point of view, but you got to think, does this have that chilling effect on discourse? Who's going to step up and continue what Charlie's doing? Somebody's, does that stop? I like to think that reasonable and rational people, and I know that doesn't necessarily fit with all the people who don't believe in Charlie. Those people are not necessarily reasonable or rational, but the ones in the middle, the unwashed mass in the middle, right? Who maybe were not, again, to utilize the whole gun thing, were not pro-Charlie. They were not necessarily anti-Charlie. They were in the middle. I'm hoping that this event is going to push them over the edge into supporting the idea that free speech is not violence, and free speech, that violence is violence, and that free speech is just that, and we need to exercise it. I want to think that that our turning point is not that discourse in America has died, but that discourse is now going through a rejuvenation, that through the sacrifice of somebody like Charlie, who essentially gave his life to prove a point that free speech is the thing that can change the world. Again, that's why they didn't, kill him for all these other reasons. They killed him because he was effective. That sacrifice can show other people, can lead the way to other people. I saw the hashtag. It was a hashtag yesterday. It's something, we are all Charlie Kirk. And I mean, I agree with that sentiment. I am not going to stop talking about the things that I believe in. I am not going I'm not going to stop trying to have a reasonable discussion or discourse on issues that I may agree or disagree with people on. Again, the answer to speech that you don't agree with is more speech. It's not violence. I was watching The Expanse the other day, and for those of you who don't, there are some great words of wisdom in that piece of entertainment. And one of the things that keeps coming back to mind is basically one of the characters says, we keep reaching for violence when we know that's not the solution, but we keep reaching for it. Violence is not the answer. The answer to speech we don't agree with is more speech. And I guess I could say, if we all just continue to speak, if we all step up, if we all take to our proverbial college campus quads and have discussions with people, they can't kill us all. We have to make sure that this turning point is not the death of discourse. And we have to hold people accountable for their actions or words or lack of actions or words. And what I mean by that is, some of the rhetoric that we keep hearing out of some of the news media about how, somebody so-and-so, don't always believe everything you read. And this is a left and a right problem too. Don't let me think that I'm just poking on the Dems on this. There are some on the right that suffer from the same problem, where they try to continue to other the other side. I don't think I ever heard Charlie Kirk say the word libtard. I don't think he would argue with people, and I think it was Kevin who said something about, basically he never demeaned the person. He always was talking logically and arguing the argument, not against the person. So that's where we are. Yes, it was Nick Freitas. Thank you, Brian. That was the video yesterday that talked about that they didn't kill Charlie because they hated him. They killed him because he was effective. That was Nick Freitas. Thank you so much for Freitas for throwing that out there, Brian. Okay. We are coming. What the heck? We are coming back here in just a minute. We're going to change gears because I have a lot to say on this, but I just think at this point, the bottom line is this: we all need to step up. We all need to agree to disagree. We need to remember to be kind. We need to love one another, even those that despitefully use us and disagree with us. We need to remember that is what America's about, that freedom is messy, and that a simple disagreement is not violence. And we need to make sure that we keep the faith. All right, we got to go here. Sarge Truesdale's up next, The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Back with more.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes on Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay. Kevin, I see this. Yeah. Kevin, I see this comment that you make about breaking ATF internal memos. Can you link me a source on that? Can you shoot me a source on Messenger or whatever for that piece? I'm interested in reading that. And yes, thank you again to Brian. Nick Freitas is the one who said that had that point. Charlie Franz said that Charlie Kirk often used the Socratic approach to get people to question their beliefs. Absolutely, he did. He had a classical education, and that was on brilliant display every time that happened. Melissa says, I just don't understand when we stop being able to talk to one another. I mean, I've never understood that. If I disagree with somebody, I don't hate them because I disagree with them. I just disagree with them, right? I mean, we might find something that we like. My gosh, what do you mean we both are space nerds and we love watching Star Trek, or, we both love sports, or we both love cars? We may disagree on something, but it doesn't mean that there's not some common ground that we can find on something. But it seems like today that the minute that somebody disagrees with somebody else, then again, they start othering them. And it's not just that we can't talk to, it's that you are evil. I mean, again, the number of posts I saw last night, because I was scrolling. I don't normally scroll Facebook, but I was scrolling through Facebook last night, and the number of people who are in my friends list who were just shocked at how many people they had to unfriend or that were defriended by, because they just basically said, hey, we're sorry to hear this, and our sympathies or thoughts and prayers or whatever they said about Charlie Kirk. And just the vitriol that came out of that, people were shocked. I mean, I'm not shocked by that because I've seen this othering going on for a long time. We've got to be able to have the ability to have reasonable, rational discourse without the ad hominem attacks, without the personal, the backbiting. And if you watch Charlie, that's what he did. That's what he did. Okay. I see that Sarge Truesdell is in the green room. And so before I get too far along in trying to catch up on all the comments here in the chat room, we should bring him on board to verify that his video and audio is working here this morning. And let's do that right now. Good morning, Sarge. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing great.
Good. Everything looks good. Sounds good. Are you ready for this here this morning? Ready to go?
I think so. It's quite the day you brought me on.
Yeah, no, this was a this was a one of those unforeseen circumstances for sure. But we'll change gears here and we'll bring things back. I mean, life has to continue. But I think that maybe we can be an example of people having a reasonable, rational discussion about things that we may or may not agree with, right? I mean, that's what it's supposed to be about. Yeah. That's what it's supposed to be about here. All right, Sarge. Well, hold on a second. I'll be right back to you here, and we'll continue here in just a second. So don't go anywhere. We'll put you back in the green room. Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm so behind here on all this different things. Lisa says, I didn't know who he was until yesterday. But now you do. And I think many people now know who he was that may not have had that before. Let's see, prayers for Charlie's family. The one thing that struck me was the way the U.S. sports, NFL and NASCAR have stepped up to honor him and take care of his family. Yep. So he was a really good friend of Dennis Prager. Yes, I agree. I'm so far behind. I'm 20 minutes ago on the comments here. So just give me a second here. There are over 600 chapters of Turning Point USA on college campuses headed by students. Hopefully the message of Charlie Kirk will spread as more people become aware of this due to his passing. Mike Rowe, speaking about Charlie yesterday, was moving. And there's been a lot of great, comments and things like that. Greg says, I encourage people to donate to Turning Point USA. I'm still the fact that Charlie bolstered the youth. Yeah, and the fact that Charlie bolstered the youth vote by so much could have been the reason Trump got elected. Definitely a change maker. It's just sad. Again, that's what Freitas said, is that it was because he was effective. I'm still scrolling through all this stuff. All right. Most of us here never meet him, but we knew of him watching his talks or videos. I'll bet most of us shed a few tears, never meeting him, but his message hit home. He was and will always be a soldier of God. I mean, I agree. I've never met the man, but I've listened to him enough and watched enough of his videos that I felt like I knew him. And yes, it was a tragic side to see that. All right. I'm not going to get through all these comments before we're up against the break. We gotta continue on. The Michael Duke Show continues. Up next, Sergeant Truesdell. We're going to talk with him right after this.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Welcome back to the program. Hour 2 of today, Thursday show. And we are going to continue here. We're changing gears just a bit. We talked a little bit, we talked for the first full hour about yesterday's tragic events and Charlie Kirk. And if you want to hear my rambling thoughts on it, I didn't, like I said, I tried to write everything down, but I had to go off the cuff. Feel free to spin back the clock there and listen to it on the podcast or watch it on Facebook or YouTube. But hour 2, we're going to change up gears a little bit. That may be awkward for some of you, but I think it's important. Life goes on, and we have to try and return to this. And maybe with our next guest, we can be an example of how reasonable, rational discourse works. Sergeant Truesdell is our guest. He is running for the Kenai Peninsula Borough Assembly in District 4. There are districts down here in the Kenai that are, specifically locked in. For those of you in Fairbanks, who all your assembly members are at large, down here, certain areas vote for certain people. That's how the district things work. And we're going to get him on the program right now to talk about his candidacy and get some information here. This is our first time talking with Sergeant Truesdell, and we'll enjoy this here. Let's get to it. Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the show.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. Thank you for taking this time. And of course, when we booked this, we had no idea that it was, that today was going to turn out to be the way it is. And I appreciate you sticking with us and coming on board and talking with us. So first things first, for those people who may not have ever heard of you or know who you are, where you came from. Can you give us a little bit of your backstory? Where, who you are and where you came from and what your history is, and just a little backstory here.
Yeah, absolutely. As you got it on the screen there, my name's Sarge Truesdell. I'm a lifelong Alaskan. I was born at Central Peninsula General Hospital here in Soldotna in 1975. I was a K-12 product of the Kenai Peninsula Borough School District here. I left for 4 years to get my undergraduate degree in the Midwest, and was fortunate enough to be hired back in the school district here. It was my first year teaching when I was 22 years old. And so I returned back to the state and taught for 9 years, was an administrator for 17 years, ended my career, my last few years at Soldotna High School, which is the biggest school in the Kenai Peninsula Borough School District, as their principal. I retired in 2024 from public education. Last year, I spent a lot of the time helping my wife run her small business here in town. And at the very end of the year, one of my former colleagues, she's a principal at an elementary school, had a baby. So she was out 8 weeks, and I stepped back into the principalship for those 8 weeks. And, I'm excited about this transition into, some local politics and trying to continue to do my civic duty for the city of Soldotna and the entire borough on that assembly seat. I feel like there was quite a few folks about a year ago this time that started talking to me about this assembly seat. Tyson Cox, who is currently in the seat, was terming out. And so to me, that's a nice stroke of the ego, but ultimately it made me feel like the people in this community felt like I had the values and the voice that was that of the Soldotna City or District 4 residents. And so I did go ahead and put my name in the hat. And since that time, I've gotten pretty excited about it. It is my initial step into something like this. But as the momentum's grown and as I've moved around campaigning, it started to feel really good. And I'm a little more comfortable in this seat.
It's interesting. I ask all the especially brand new candidates who've really never run for office before. I often ask them the question in phrased as a question of when exactly did you lose your mind? What was that aha moment? I mean, was it a single thing that made you say, well, I'm going to step in, or was it just a combination of issues? Was there something that finally tripped the switch to say, Sarge, you need to step up? I mean, what was it that made you go from being retired and just enjoying a little bit of quiet life maybe to throwing your hat into the ring to something like this?
Yeah, I get asked that question a lot. A very good friend of mine, Vanessa, works for Tom Cotton in Arkansas. And right when she heard I was putting my name in, she called me and said, "Are you crazy person? Local politics is going to ruin your life, And when you're born and raised in a town, Sarge hasn't been a perfect angel his whole life. I've made mistakes, and I've made all of them right here locally where everybody's gotten to see it. So certainly there is a little bit of that. But last year I got appointed by Mayor Machicki to this tourism industry working group here that was really going to review were the visitors to our Kenai Peninsula paying their fair share. And I think there was some folks who were interested in potentially a bed tax at the borough level. And so they put together that working group. And I sat on that. It took about 4 months for us to work through that process and come back to the assembly with an idea. And I think during that little working group is where I was like, okay, I get this little bit of fire under me, really, to learn something new. I'm a former educator, so I'm a lifelong learner. I'm ever evolving, and I want to learn more and be more involved. Again, there's just a piece of civic duty for me that thought, who better to do this than somebody who's lived in the community their entire life, somebody who knows lots of people in the community. When you're a school principal, you have to sit and be able to be open to varying perspectives, and to me, I've become a much better listener. I come from a family of talkers, but I've become a much better listener. And I want to understand everybody's perspective in my district and in our borough.
It's it's interesting, again, talking about discourse and being able to agree to disagree. I think that's something that we need to have back in. I think it's something we need to bring back. I think it's something we need to embrace. And I think it's something that we've kind of over the last, 20 years in this country seem to have lost quite a bit of that. And so I appreciate the idea that somehow we can look at and understand people's, not necessarily agree with it, but at least understand people's point of view and be able to have a reasonable, rational discussion about those kind of things. And we'll get into that further here in just a minute. But first and foremost, as you are on the outside looking in, trying to run for the borough assembly, so you don't know my history, Sarge, probably, is that, I've just recently moved down here to the Kenai. We purchased the radio stations down here, and we took over in January. But I've been involved in Alaska politics pretty much my entire adult life at one form or another, either commentating or actually participating. And so I'm just getting up to speed on some of the issues here in the KPB. So as an outsider looking in, what to you as a candidate are the big issues that are going to be facing the borough here in the next 3 to 5 years? What are the big key issues that you look at and go, these are going to be pain points, or these are going to be issues that we're going to have to deal with? From your perspective, what are they?
Yeah, when you look at, I'm very impressed with our borough mayor and our assembly at this point. 2 of the last 3 years, they've been able to lower the mill rate, and I think he continues to look at ways to do that. The school system takes a tremendous amount of money. They chose last year to fund them to the cap, which was in tune of $6+ million extra, that essentially was subsidized by property tax rather than sales tax. All of the sales tax in the Kenai Peninsula Borough goes to the schools. And so when, ultimately that school system thing has to be solved at some point. And as part of that tourism industry working group, we came back with we gave the assembly an idea to change up our sales tax from 3% year round to 2% on the first and last quarter, and 4% to the middle 2 quarters, essentially hitting the tourists with that extra percent of sales tax. That was the prediction for that was over $4 million of additional revenue to the borough in sales tax form, which almost closes that gap for the school district that we're currently subsidizing with property taxes. And so I like that idea. It didn't make it on the ballot. I hope to revisit that because I think it can help us. I see some of your comments. People want to get rid of property taxes. And I hear that a lot, and I understand why. If you own your house and you don't really own it, somebody will come take it away if you don't pay your property taxes. And so I understand that. That idea for me of being able to use sales tax that maybe is on the backs of more of our visitors than it is on our locals would help us with that continued thought of how to lower the mill rate in the long run. So I see that as an issue. We have some other things in our borough that are really 10 to 12% of our overall budget is our landfill. And I feel like there's just been a lot of patchwork on that and hasn't been real fixes. At the September 2nd assembly meeting, Mayor Machicki spoke to that because there was a large group of recycling advocates in the crowd who were upset about the way the landfill is operating right now. And he said that he's got a plan and that they're moving forward. There's new equipment purchased, a new employee coming on board who has experience with that coming through and fixing some of the problems that we currently have. So I'm excited if I do get elected to get on the inside of both of those issues, the school funding issue, as well as our landfill and how to make that, the cost of a landfill just keep going up, gas and all of the things that are required in there, they don't go the wrong direction. And so figuring out how to make that sustainable is important to me as well.
Sarge Truesdell is our guest candidate for the KPB Assembly for District 4. We're talking about some of the big issues that are facing the community, and I think, we've hit on one of my pet peeves. Of course, is the property tax, and not just the property tax, but the assessment, Sarge. And that's the problem when you have somebody who's been here, and we have anecdotal stories. Chris Story down here has a show on my stations, and he's a guest on the show quite frequently, and he's talked about people contacting him. 80-year-old woman who's lived here for the last 60 years with her family, owns her house and the property around it, but now is going to have to move out because of the assessments, and on her retirement she can't afford her own homestead. You know what I mean? People are starting to get to the point that the property tax thing is seriously an issue, and some states are now seriously looking at abolishing property tax. Florida's talking about it, Texas is talking about it, and that would mean that we would have to diversify the tax base in some way and probably shrink the size and scope of government to help accomplish that. Is that something that you can consider, can get behind, would be open to at least discussing and having a conversation about?
Yeah, that's, as I mentioned earlier, as a lifelong learner, I'm kind of excited about learning. I don't know how we fund a $200 million borough without property taxes. I know again that there are states that are exploring it, so there must be some creative ways to do that. I would be very interested to learn how we can continue, because I think we have good services in the borough. I feel strong about the services that our borough provides. I don't feel like our government here is too big. I don't know how we would shrink it to that level. I'm interested in learning that, but just off the top of my head, I don't know how we would fund our government, how we would make sure we still had solid services provided. But I'd be interested in that conversation, most certainly.
And I would think that even if we just focused the the property tax removal, even if we just focused it on residential property. I mean, if you're a commercial property owner, okay, you pay the tax. It's part of the business of being it's part of the business of that. It's a business expense. But if you're a private homeowner and it's your residential property, you should at least be able to own one thing in your life, right? Without having to rent it from the government for the rest of your life. So at least that discussion, and that wouldn't eliminate all of the property taxes, but at least for a residential thing. And then I know, and I don't know if you're familiar with it, Chris Story has also floated this idea of what he calls the fair tax, and they're working on it right now, which would essentially be a California style Prop 13 thing, where if you bought your house, and again, just to use a random number, if you bought your house for $100,000, that's your tax rate for as long as you own that property. Doesn't matter if the assessed value went up to $300,000 or $400,000 or $500,000, you're still paying at that set rate that when you bought it, which is what they did in California because people were having to move out. And is that something that you would be interested in looking at or getting behind?
Yeah, for me, I would love to see a lot on paper of what the different options are. If we just pay property taxes on our house up through our mortgage, and then at the end of it, we're done paying property taxes as well. I would be interested in seeing what the numbers would be on that. I'll be interested to see what they would be on your California Prop 13 kind of alignment as well, and just see what the numbers end up being. One of the other things in our borough, and I'll just brag about my district for a second. The city of Soldotna has done phenomenal things to bring people here. I don't know if you've attended Music in the Park or our Wednesdays in the park in town. You can't drive through town. I have to take back roads to get where I want to go in this town on that day because it fills up our community so much. They've built a new field house. And when people want to move to a community, they're looking for safe things for their kids to do and fun things for the adults to do. And you look at City of Ninilchik on their fairgrounds out there with Salmon Fest that brings, tens of thousands of people to our community, to driving through our community. So I'm proud of the city of Soldotna for the things that they have done. They have a storefront renewal grant program that my wife actually took advantage of, where if you redo the storefront of your business, they'll pay for half, essentially, the city will. So I just think they're doing lots of things to try to bring additional people and families to our community. I worry a little bit about the school consolidation efforts that are going on. I'm behind the one that's taking place in the city of Soldotna, which is combining the two smaller elementary schools there into one big school. And the economy of scale would allow for music and art and PE and all of the things that some of those small schools can't afford together. But then we have Sterling Elementary that's 10, 12 miles out of town. To the north, we have Tustamina Elementary that's 10, 12 miles to the south towards Homer. Those are very small elementary schools, but that's where there's affordable property in and around Soldotna. That's where young families are going to have to purchase, because anything in the city limits or in town is just too expensive. And so now are they going to be willing to put their kindergartner on a bus for an hour into town? And so we need to do things that will make our communities appealing to young families instead of retired folks.
Yeah, I think we need to talk a little bit more about the schooling, and specifically because really for any borough, the school funding is really the number one cost center in any borough. And the KPB is no different. So we'll continue this discussion here in just a moment. The Michael Duke Show continues. Sarge Truesdell is our guest. He is a candidate for the Kenai Peninsula Borough Assembly for District 4 in that area. And we will continue with him here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Dukes Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We'll be back right after this.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes on Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay, Sarge Truesdell is our guest. Sorry, here I'm trying to fix something that went wrong over here. So let me fix this first, and I will close that there, and we'll go over here and 1, 2, 3. I need one more. Okay, sorry. Yesterday was such a hot mess. We had to change a bunch of stuff to fix some things, and now we've got it. Okay. Sarge Truesdell is our guest. Sarge, I couldn't find, I was going to post up your website, and maybe I missed it in your email. Do you have a website yet where folks
No, I didn't do anything fancy for my campaign. I have my regular Facebook page that I've been welcoming people to join, and but I didn't start any kind of campaign website or start an additional Facebook page. Maybe that was a rookie mistake. I've had lots of people around the community who are offering to support my campaign financially. I wasn't ready for that at first. I was turning down money, and the individual that I'm running against isn't being real active yet. I don't know if his intent is to do that late, but I'm not seeing any signs or radio ads or anything. And so ultimately, I don't want to spend a bunch of people in our community's money just to have my name plastered everywhere if the other candidate's not going to put up a fight per se. But, right now I'm just kind of, doing it from I'd say the lower standpoint of branching out into any of those things. So I don't have a website, but I would welcome anybody who wants to friend me on Facebook and follow along as I try to get people's votes to do that.
Okay. All right. And tell us a little bit here, because we're in the break, and so I hate to repeat myself for the podcast later on. So the radio can't hear us, but it's just you, me, and 50 of our closest friends on the internet right now, and whoever listens to the podcast later on. What made you go into education to begin with? As you grew up in Soldotna, born and raised, spent your whole time there, and then came back. What made you jump into the what triggered you towards education?
Yeah, so I come from a real blue collar family. My dad was an oil field worker. That's why he actually came up here in the late 60s when he graduated from high school in Huntington Beach, California, and started working out in Swanson River Road. He found out that, okay, this is where he wants to live. So he went back down, grabbed my mom, and they moved up here very early 70s. And he worked in the oil field and she worked at the Central Peninsula Hospital. She did that for 25 years. An odd thing happened when I was in middle school. My dad quit the oil field and he went back to school, started at Kenai Peninsula College, taking remedial classes to get himself in a spot where he could even take the regular classes. All through high school, my dad was driving back and forth to Anchorage, to UAA while I was in school. So I really had this kind of educational value that hit me because we couldn't afford anything. I wasn't going to the movies. We didn't have any money. Dad wasn't working. And while I was at Skyview High School, and I was the first freshman class to open that building, just such a great, phenomenal staff of teachers and coaches that just had a big impact on me. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I know my dad did not want me to go into the oil field. He had done that. He had lived that life. He moved around his whole entire. My dad went to 12 different schools in his 12 years of high school because they were chasing oil all around Texas and New Mexico and California. And I think he wanted stability. And so he just constantly told me, and I remember one of my uncles called my dad one time and said, "Hey, get my son a job up on the slope." And my dad said, "I won't do it. I won't do it. You don't hire my son someday in the oil field and I won't hire yours." And it's not that he's the anti-oil field work. I just think he wanted something different for his own children. So all of my siblings have degrees. I think 3 out of 4 of us have master's degrees. There's a real educational value in our home watching our dad grind it out when we were in high school. So I went outside to a teacher's school. I was recruited to be a wrestler and football player, and they paid for about half of my education. I came out with about half as much debt as a normal person would be because of that. And it was a small teacher college in eastern North Dakota. And it just kind of all fell into place to be an educator. When I first started and I was teaching, I just loved it. And that was kind of the background on it.
All right. Hold on, Sarge. I'm sorry. We're about to rejoin the radio. So it's good. Some good backstory there. We'll continue here. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Please like and share the show. Like and follow. Share the show page. Here we go.
Public enema number 1. Oh, wait, sorry. Public enemy number 1, which makes more sense. On the other hand, he's a little bit of a pain in the Michael Duke Show.
That's me. A little bit of a pain in the whatever. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Sarge Truesdell is our guest, candidate for the KPB Assembly District 4. Before we went to break, we were talking a little bit about the costs of, the biggest cost factor in boroughs is education. And of course, this fight that we had over the last 12, 18 months in the legislature was all about funding. Sarge mentioned earlier that the KPB had funded almost all the way up to the tax cap for their school districts as well. And I guess my question is this, Sarge, as a lifelong educator, retired teacher and a principal and everything else, somebody who is involved, I think a lot of my listeners will ask the question, well, can you be impartial when it comes to the idea of school funding? Because I think the question many of us are asking is, when is how much is enough? We're paying, you guys are paying to the cap. The KPB is paying to the cap. We're looking for more money. They're already saying that they're going to come back this next session and ask for even more on top of the 700 that they just got. And so a lot of people are asking, when is enough? And that leads to your question of you of, can you remain impartial? And from your perspective, how much is enough?
Yeah. So to answer your question, first of all, and I've been running on this platform, I'm not an automatic fund to the cap vote. I'm hopeful that, again, I've said it already on this show, that we can collect more property tax on the back of some of our visitors that will help get them closer to the cap through sales tax rather than property tax. But what they did last year, where they went into the coffers for $6+ million to get into the cap, that's not sustainable. And I recognize that, and I'll say it over and over again. I consider myself an educational expert. I was in the field for 26 years. I did a tremendous amount of professional development. I learned a lot about kids and education throughout. I'm going to hold our superintendent and our assistant superintendent and everybody at district office to a very high standard for how the dollars that come from the borough are spent. The superintendent's a friend of mine, but he makes a lot of money. And to me, when you have a salary at the size of his, we should be seeing results. And the number one result I want to see is I want to see students come back into our school district who have left. We have 1,000+ students just right here locally who are attending the Galena School District through the IDA program. And so all of those millions of dollars go to Galena School District rather than ours. I think a lot of that is because out of spite, people who have been wronged by our school district or left out or not listened to have said, we're done with you and we're leaving. And so my expectation for our district leadership is to show not only academic results, but enrollment results. And I'm hopeful that as an assembly member, I'll be able to push in that direction. And so I'm not an automatic fund to the cap vote. I got an email from the NEA here locally, and the last question of the survey said, will you fund to the cap, yes or no? Well, I X'd out of the survey at that point, and I emailed them. I said, I won't answer that question like that. It's not a yes or no question. It's based on, to me, school district results, the amount of money that the borough has to put in from property tax beyond what we collect sales tax. And I'm not answering a yes or no question on that.
It's interesting you bring up IDEA because, one of the things that people have pointed to is, yes, I think that there's probably a component of IDEA families who, have felt wronged or who have been silenced or ignored by school districts. And that's one of the reasons. But also, IDEA has been innovative and they offer a lot of things that many other school districts don't. In ease of use and, in support and things like that. There's nothing stopping any school district from doing something identical to IDEA. And this comes back to the competition of ideas, not IDEA itself, Galena IDEA, but the competition of ideas in the marketplace. And ideally, that's, I think, where we're going to be going. I think, education should be changing along with every other component of our life as technology and things develop and improve. Shouldn't the school districts be offering, if something is working, and obviously IDEA's growth shows that something is working there, shouldn't we be emulating those things?
Yeah, I mean, that seems, I think that we see, rather how you feel about our federal politics or not, we see that our country is now being run more like a business potentially. And I think the school district is the same thing. It's a business. There's another business moved into town and is taking your customers. Why are they taking our customers? I mean, that seems real simple to me. If there's another competitive business that came in and is doing better and your customers are flooding over there, then what are they doing? I mean, it's not like we have to send a mole into IDA and find out what they're doing and try to change it. It's right there. You have parents that are writing it right now on the thread. What's better about IDA? Why are we not changing Connections, the homeschool program here for the Kenai Peninsula, to match that one? And I see it almost every single day on my Facebook thread with community members who write in and say, hey, we're kind of done with brick and mortar school. We're going to homeschool. Which program should we choose? And then I see this flood of comments that are IDA. And to me, it's like, I want to write in there, let's shop local, right? It's the same thing at Christmas when the Chamber of Commerce says, hey, don't buy all your gifts on Amazon. Go to the local stores. I do that. If I can afford it, I don't order everything on Amazon. I'll go to our brick stores here and I'll purchase stuff, even if it's a little bit more expensive, to keep the money in Soldotna. I want our parents to think the same thing. If possible, let's figure out a way to make our local school district program as good as theirs. And ultimately, that's not my decision. That's the superintendent. And I had aspirations to be the school superintendent at one point in time, and it didn't go that direction. But to me, that's part of the job of district office, is to figure that out and then make their product better so customers want to come to that product rather than the competitions.
No, I mean, and I agree, because and I think that we have to look at the way they were doing it. One of the things that I think has been missed over the last 12 months or 18 months, as we've discussed this whole school funding issue, one of the things that was continually left out was the kids. It was all about the funding. It was all about, protecting the spend and that the districts had to do and everything else. But we, hardly anybody was mentioning, where we're at scholastically, what the achievement scores were looking like and everything else. We seem to have forgotten that we have to deliver a product and that product needs to be good. And we were not seeing any ideas for how we increase those scores. How do we increase the achievements? It was all about, well, just give us the money and we'll figure it out later. We can't keep doing the same thing over and over and getting different results. I mean, everything has changed. Nobody's, the average worker today, the millennial worker, holds 12 or 13 or 14 jobs during their career. That wasn't what it was like for my folks. It wasn't what it was like for your folks, maybe one or two. And so things change and we have got to adapt, but they want to kind of hold the school system and the system that we have right now in amber and not make those changes.
Yeah, absolutely. And hey, one of the things I should actually mention to your audience is that a lot of people ask me why I wasn't running for school board instead of running for assembly, and there wasn't a Soldotna seat available. And so I would have had to wait until that seat comes up to run. But ultimately, I've never been interested in the school board. I think there's already too many teachers and former educators on the school boards. That's the educator voice is not the voice of the community. I see comments right now that are essentially saying that. And to me, folks who have that opinion need to run for school board. I know it's a big commitment, but we need more people who think that our school districts are heading in the wrong direction to run for school board and get on there and get their voice heard, because the people that are currently willing to do it a lot of them are former educators, and that does not make up the voice of the community. So that's my push for folks to rather than complain about the school district, find somebody locally who has the same kinds of views as you that's willing to do it, and get a school board that really does represent the views of the public in that area.
Right. Well, because we see that time and time again, where many school boards in the state are made up of the vast majority of them are made up of people who are serving that certain constituency, who are part of the educational, a part of the educational industry. And while that's an important component, it should not make up most of it. And this has been my complaint about this issue of school districts around the state, not just KPB, but around the state, is that they continue to factor their budgets as if they are going to get the same number of students, or that they're going to continue to expand. And we know statistically from around the state that almost every school district has had declining enrollment for years and is projected to continue that declining enrollment. And since you're paid on a per student basis, you should be budgeting for the worst case scenario, not the best case scenario. And that's what seems to be happening, is that every school district, and this is a function of the superintendent and the boards, the school boards, they're approving and making these budgets that are on best case scenario. And then they freak out when they can't, the money's not there. Well, yes, of course. Why are we continuing to do that? That is self-defeating.
Yeah. When you look at the pie chart of school districts, how they spend it, essentially it's 85+% on teachers and healthcare benefits. And so I think their biggest fear when they're putting their budget together is that they have to pink slip teachers. Now, when I got my job in 1998 in KPBSD, there was over 100 applicants for that middle school social studies job. And I felt like a superhero for being chosen out of that 100. My last 3 years at Soldotna High School, I had jobs that I was begging and pleading and searching across the country for one single applicant who was qualified for that position, and filling holes in the schedule, because when you pink slip people, they leave. And they don't stick around and wait till June when the budget's settled to be told they have a job. They got to pay their bills. And so they take off and they leave and they go get jobs someplace else. So I understand what superintendents and school boards are doing when they're trying to hold that 85% bare minimum together so that they cannot pink slip people, because, and it's kind of this cycle that when you lose good teachers, students come back in. If they don't have a high quality teacher, they leave, right? I mean, that's the part of a school that essentially, it's like if you own an auto shop, how good is your mechanic? If you have a school, how good are your teachers? I mean, that's what drives the bus in a school. And without high quality applicants and with people leaving, it does put them in a pinch. And so it's kind of this overall cycle. Declining enrollment happens when you don't have quality teachers. Quality teachers leave when they don't have jobs. And we've been in this cycle now for 20 years, and which you see in a lot of our test scores and results, because again, a high quality educator is worth their weight in gold when it comes to teaching the standards and getting kids up to proficiency and beyond.
You mentioned your wife, and we only have a minute here left, but you mentioned your wife, owns a business and everything else. I mean, she has to deal with the vagaries of the market, right? If the economy's down, she has to tighten her belt. Any business does. And so if the economy, the educational economy is down because we have fewer students, or we have less money, we have less revenue available, or a combination thereof, shouldn't the school district then plan to, and I understand that, pink slipping or laying people off, whether they're teachers or administrators or janitorial or whatever, I understand that there has real world consequences, but just like any other business, we have to do that to remain within the budget, right? And still deliver a decent product. That's what we need to do.
Yeah, that's to me where some innovation needs to come in. Again, Clayton Holland's a friend of mine. He's been a pretty solid superintendent. Our careers kind of ran parallel. We were hired around the same time in the late 90s. But they need to do a better job at district office of innovating. I think the high schools could look so much different and be staffed less. I think the upper level high schools could look more like colleges with classes in auditoriums. You could teach seniors government in an auditorium with one teacher, and you can have a Zoom option where they can do it at home. They can come in. I think I walked around some of these high school government classes. There's 14, 18 seniors in there. The other 10 are at home, not even showing up. It's like, I think there can be some innovative ways to reduce staff, especially at the high school, and focus on the right things.
Yeah, because otherwise it's going to be a shock when these kids show up to college and they step into a room and there's 85 people in the class and they're like, well, wait, I need to have my 14 or 18. I can't, you've got to prepare. It should be a step down approach, right? Smaller class sizes until you get to high school. I mean, this seems to make sense to me. Sarge Truesdell is our guest. We're going to continue with him here in just a moment. We are up against the break, and we're going to continue. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Back with more in just a moment.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Ha, nice beard.
The Michael Duke Show.
I'm so glad you brought that up, Sarge, because that has been a pet peeve of mine for years when they keep talking about class sizes and class sizes and class sizes. And I'm like, I remember when I went to college, and I only attended one semester of college, okay? But I remember stepping into a classroom with 50, 60, 80 people in it and being like, wow, this can be, I don't understand why we have to try and keep high school class levels at exactly the same level that we want to keep kindergarten class. It makes no sense. These are adults now, or moving into that adult realm. They need to be prepared for what's coming.
Yeah, I was fortunate. Both my children came through the high school and here locally, and they're both college-bound kids. My son is actually finishing up his master's degree, who graduated Christmas, and my daughter's in North Dakota State University in the nursing program. And I got to see how at 17 and 18 years old, as athletes, as kids that had jobs, they didn't need to spend 1 minute longer in the school than they needed to. They wanted to show up, pass the classes they needed to pass, and then do their activities or their job. And the school district's trying to force juniors and seniors to be in the class, like in the school, like you and I were. And they don't want to be there. They want to come in. They want to get out. Their brains are more like college kids now. And they just want to stop in for an hour, do their class, and get out of there. And the school district's fighting that. And it requires additional staffing. The longer juniors and seniors are in the building, if you force them to take 5 classes, now you got to have 5 teachers that have those 5 in there. And I just don't think that they've adjusted appropriately to what kids and families want out of their last 2 years in high school now.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's the advent of the automobile, and the school system is still trying to get people to come to school in buggy whips. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like
it's the slowest evolving thing in the entire world is public education.
Yeah, it won't change, and quite honestly, that's why things like IDEA. All 5 of my kids were schooled through IDEA. In fact, my daughter was one of the first 25 kids in the program up in Fairbanks. That's where we got started, and it was because of the innovation. It was because of the access to technology and the contact teachers and the embracing of a whole new model. And if the school district doesn't get on board with that, they're just going to continue to lose to innovators, right? That's what we're talking about here, is the innovation. And if they won't adapt, it's adapt or die. That's what it really is about.
And it's dying because they won't adapt.
Yeah, absolutely. And they keep stamping their foot and saying, well, just give us more money and we'll make it real, but with no real plan of how that new money is going to be applied and anything else. And from the outside looking in, it looks like it's more about protectionism of the industry than it is about delivering a decent product.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Somebody asked the question here. Where was it? Right here. Elena asked the question. The rest of the money that the district received from the state is not going to fund all the positions for those who lost their jobs because of the cuts. Some are, but not all. It looks like the school board is holding on to the other half to potentially use that for contract negotiations. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Teachers deserve to have their salaries raised like the rest of us do with inflation. I mean, they can't continue to go the wrong direction the whole time. I think there's a lot of things I could say about NEA that isn't positive, But in the end, when you buy a house and you start raising a family, your costs go up. You deserve for your career your salary to go up at least with inflation. So negotiations are always a really tough one. It means that it's going to cost the taxpayers more money every single time you give 500 teachers a raise. I'm happy that I don't have to sit in on those negotiations and be part of them anymore, because it is contentious and difficult, and there isn't any money, and people start pointing at each other, pretending like there's more money than there is, or that somebody's shuffling money under a couch someplace that could be used for their raise. So that is a difficult one.
Well, and I mean, it might shock you to hear that most of us out here don't get an automatic raise, right? I mean, most of the vast majority of people who are out there working class in their careers, they're not guaranteed an automatic raise every year. And that's one of the things that I think is most infuriating to a lot of us is it would be great to get a raise, but should it be guaranteed every year? And should there be more and more? And I think this comes back to that question of, is it more about the jobs than it is about the final delivery of the product? And that's where I think I think that's where you're hearing the frustration from.
Yeah, and I understand that frustration. I really do. Yeah. I mean, I'm empathetic to that. And again, I understand that there's not an endless amount of money, and there can't be an always big bump of additional money from the state and from borough consistently. I don't have an answer to that. I mean, there's a union there that is negotiating for them, and it's already difficult to find teachers. It'd be a big overhaul to change how that is. I think that the ideas we talked about earlier with innovating and changing things.
Hold on, I'm sorry. I apologize. We always get into a good comment, so let me jump back in here, and we could finish your thought on that. Sarge Truesdell's our guest. Let's get to it. Here we go.
The Michael Duke Show. Seriously humorous with a pinch of intellect. Sorry. That is humorous. Here's Michael Dukes.
All right, one final segment here with Sarge Truesdell, candidate for the KPB Assembly District 4. During the break, I was asking him the question about, the costs and the new teacher's contract and everything else. Mentioning the fact that, those of us in the private sector, we don't get automatic raises every year and so on and so forth. And, there's a question of, should it be automatic? Should it be more, instead of step increases, should it be meritocracy? Should it be more merit-based? Should it be outcome-based? Those kind of things, because there is a finite amount of money, Sarge, and eventually you're going to hit that equilibrium where there's just, there's no more money, no more revenue for what we have. And, everybody's going to kind of have to suck it up and say, this is as much money as we've got. We can't just automatically give pay increases, which the private sector understands. And I think that's what's causing some of this antipathy towards some in the school, in the industry, in the education industries, because they just keep saying, well, we need more, we need more, we need more.
Yeah, and it is a really tricky topic. I mean, obviously there is a teachers union, and all teachers fall on the scale based on their experience and their education. And I think that original model was the model that was saying the teachers who have more education and more years experience must be the better teachers. And so they get the higher raises and steps as it goes. Most fields, especially blue collar ones, you get a raise if you're talented and you're hardworking, and you have a supervisor of sorts who chooses to move you into a position where you make more money or give you a raise. Schools are not set up on that, and because of the union, I don't know how you would change that. I don't have an answer to that question. And so I see a lot of comments that are true. I don't get a raise every single year. It's based on performance. Well, absolutely. The schools have not been set up like that because of the union. And so, but all teachers are evaluated, and there's good evaluation systems in place. Not like there used to be. When I first started as an educator, there was like 3 columns to judge a teacher on. You'd go in the room, either they were bad, they were okay, or they were good. That was essentially the 3 things we had to check. There was no evidence built into their evaluations. We went to a model about 12, 14 years ago that is so much better for evaluating teachers. It's based on evidence. There's a tremendous amount of components and domains where They're ranked in 4 areas. And again, in order to put a ranking for a teacher, there has to be evidence to show that they belong there, not just a teacher's principal's gut feeling about it. So it seems to me like there are ways, because of the new evaluation systems, that are much better, that you could have a system of I don't think it can ever be based on test scores, because some of your best teachers are special education teachers with intensive needs students who are non-communicative, who don't speak, and they still make huge progress. But how would you determine that in a system where we pay you based on test scores? It really is kind of a puzzle that, even as what I consider myself an educational expert, I don't have an answer to. Now, I think a lot of smart people could probably get together and come up with a way to make that equitable. But certainly it is an issue that drives the budget continually upward.
Yeah. Sarge, we got about 5 minutes here, and so I want to change gears a little bit. If you were elected today, what is your focus tomorrow? What is your starting focus? What are the things that you're going to try and spearhead as an assembly member? What direction would you be going on, and what would be the issues that you would be picking up?
Yeah, the very first issue is that there's the possibility of 5 new assembly members out of 9 total seats, because that's how many seats are up right now, are 5 seats. And so there is an incumbent in Sterling, and so if she wins, but she's got quite the race in front of her, I think. And then there's a candidate in K Beach named Scott Griebel, who worked for the borough for 25 to 27 years. And so he's very well. I think he would hit the ground running should he win that seat. But that's my very initial concern, is how do we continue to do business and get going when there's 5 of us potentially who would be new, and trying to figure out how to do that job and getting the background. One of the things that always blew me away when somebody new would come into the school district is they don't know where we've been. And so they start bringing up ideas and stuff that we've already explored and already determined don't work. And it's like, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to sit down at the borough assembly and start having these ideas that have already been, we've already cycled through. And now I sound like I don't know what I'm talking about. So I got to get up to speed if I'm elected. And when you have 5 new assembly members, there's going to be people who are chairing groups that are rookies. You know, there's just enough of those committees that people have to chair that could be being done. And they need experts in those spots and good leadership. So that's the initial piece. The things that I mentioned before with the budget, I like what the current leadership at the borough is doing. I think Mayor Machicki has the right idea. He's not growing government. Matter of fact, the mill rate has dropped 2 out of the last 3 years. I have my eye on ways to help the school district out through sales tax, not through subsidizing with our property tax. That's my number one mission when it comes to school funding, is to figure out a way to not have to dip into our property taxes to do that. And so that'll be one of my main focuses, and getting myself up to speed on big issues like our landfill, and figuring out why that is costing us up to 12% of our overall budget, and what do we need to do to fix that.
And I hope you would be a voice again for that innovation that you talked about, you know, of changing the system, that the system can't continue the way that it's going, because obviously it's not working. And so we need to address that and dive into that. We got about 90 seconds here, Sarge. So I want to give you the floor, your final elevator pitch, where people can find you, how they get a hold of you. Are you doing any meet and greets or meetings, and just the elevator pitch of why people should vote for Sarge Truesdell?
Yeah, I just think ultimately I'm doing this as a civic responsibility. I love my community. I really do. I just want to be the voice of and represent the values and the voice of the people in Soldotna. Anybody who, you know, I've seen Cindy Glassmaker has been pointing on here. She's a parent of mine for years. All of her girls came through the school district and through my schools, and we built great relationships. And so people like that, I think, recognize that I am a listener, and I will listen to perspectives, even if I don't agree with them. I love sitting in the audience of an assembly meeting and having people go up to the podium and make public comment. And sometimes it is 100% opposite direction of what Sarge believes. But I sit there with respect and listen, because they have a perspective that deserves to be heard. And that's really what you'll get with Sarge Truesdell. If you call me on the phone, I promise I'll listen with an open mind to your perspective. And I want to be able to understand it, so that when I do cast my vote, it really is the vote of the Soldotna folks.
All right, folks, we're out of time for today. Sarge, thanks so much. Hold the line. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Sorry, Sarge, we were up against a hard break there. We had to jump back to it, so I'll give you one final bite at the apple here. Anything that we didn't hit on or any subject that we should have that you are interested in, I give you about 2 minutes here to finish up your thoughts.
Yeah, no, I mean, I feel like we've covered it, and I'm really happy that you had me on the show. I actually got a text here, and I need to run out to Tustamina Elementary to sub for their principal. She's got a sick baby, so I don't know if you can cut me loose now, if that'll screw things up, or I'm happy to wait and do the 2 minutes, but...
No, that's fine. We're good to go. I just want to make sure it give you the opportunity more than anything else. So we appreciate you coming on board, and look forward to hearing from you more in the future.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on, and I'd be happy to come back sometime if I win my election.
All right. Thank you so much, Sarge Truesdell, for being part of the program today. We appreciate it. You are free and clear to navigate, my friend. All right, folks, we are out of time for today. I just hope that as you stick with me here for just one more second, I hope that we all take a moment today, first and foremost, to hug the ones we love and tell them how much we love them. Yesterday's events basically proved to us how quickly something can change. And then I would encourage you, again, going back to my point earlier of asking the question, did discourse die yesterday? Only if we let it. Only if we let it. Only if we give in to fear. Only if we bow to the terrorism of yesterday's moment, because that's what it was. It was in effect a way to try and bully people into being quiet and to silence those who were effective. And so you need to be the change. We all need to be the Charlie Kirks of the world. We need to step up, and we need to we need to be that change, and be that light and be that beacon and be reasonable and rational and empathetic to people, right? To understand where they're coming from, even if we don't agree with it. We need to work on that together. So did discourse die yesterday? Because it could be either discourse died or there's a million new Charlie Kirks in the world. I would choose to believe that we're going to tip in the other direction. We've got to keep, I'm not going to stop talking about these things, and I'm not going to stop having conversations with people who I disagree with. And I'm not going to call names. I'm not going to, that's an example that Charlie set that I think is amazing. Kill them with kindness and logic. That's how you do it. That's how you bring people to your point of view. And we're going to continue that tomorrow. Thoughts and prayers again to Charlie's wife, Erica, and their 2 young children. And may God bless America, and God bless you guys. I just ask you, of course, to be kind and to love one another and to live well. Thank you for coming on board, my friends. We'll see you tomorrow.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.